It's ultimately we come in here every day with an objective to leave the world slightly better than how it was when we entered it. So the objective is that every time we come into the office, we're just chipping away little by little at that objective, because otherwise what's really the point? What are we really committing all these time and resources that we could be allocating all the intelligent people that we have working here? It's really important to us that they're contributing that towards something that has value and meaning towards society at large.
Welcome to the Culture from the Heart podcast on the From the Heart Business Network. In a business world where employees and customers crave authenticity and trust, hosts Larry Levine and Daryl Amy are on a mission to find and showcase heart-centered executives and the companies they lead. You are about to hear an inspiring conversation with a visionary leader that's bringing heart into the workplace, empowering employees, serving their clients, and uplifting communities, all to create true success. This is Culture from the Heart. The movement starts here. Let's begin.
Welcome to Culture from the Heart. I'm your co-host, Daryl Amy, here today with Larry Levine, and we're joined by Omid Khalifeh, CEO of Omid Legal Group, a premier patent, trademark, and copyright law firm. Omid, welcome. It's great to have you here.
Oh, thanks for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's our pleasure. We're going to have a great conversation, Daryl, today.
I know we will. And as we get started, Omid, you know the question we ask every guest on Culture from the Heart, and that is, what does Culture from the Heart mean to you?
You know what? For us and our firm, it's all about leading with purpose. Our ultimate objective is to create an atmosphere where the people who work in this practice feel that they're leading with purpose, and that they can feel good about the work that they do and leave the office every day feeling fulfilled, and that they really contributed their time towards something that's really has meaning and value to them.
Oh, this is good. This is so good. And I was just curious, when you hear leading with purpose, what's this mean? Leading with purpose. What's that mean to you, Omid?
It's ultimately we come in here every day with an objective to leave the world slightly better than how it was when we entered it. So the objective is that every time we come into the office, we're just chipping away little by little at that objective, because otherwise what's really the point? What are we really committing all these time and resources that we could be allocating all the intelligent people that we have working here, who've gone through extensive training and education to arrive at this point in their careers? It's really important to us that they're contributing that towards something that has value and meaning towards society at large.
Yeah, I think the concept of meaning is really powerful. And I think a lot of organizations struggle with this. We're doing law, we're building houses, we're making widgets, we're doing whatever we do. How do you ascribe meaning to what you do? What does that look like inside your world?
Yeah, so we're fortunate enough to have direct contact with a lot of the clients that we're representing. Oftentimes when we have the bigger kind of faceless entities, you're dealing with somebody within the organization that doesn't really have a vested interest in everything that's happening in their business. Somebody like a general counsel or a CFO who's tasked with communicating with us. We represent some of those clients as well, but oftentimes we're dealing with smaller, closely held entities that they themselves have close contact with their clients. And so everything comes from the perspective of, how does this impact our organization as a whole, and how does it touch all the people that we're here to serve?
Which so ties into two words that are just near and dear to me, Omid, and that's connect and relate. And something tells me when you're working with smaller entities like this, it's your ability and your people's ability to come alongside them and connect and relate, I guess, will get them to start opening up. And that goes back to this whole leading with purpose.
Absolutely. That's the first step, is always that connection. Because if you don't understand what it is that they're trying to achieve, it's that much more difficult to try to advocate for them. And ultimately, that's what we do as legal practitioners. We step into the shoes of the people that we represent and give them a voice while utilizing our legal knowledge in order to advance their objectives. So if you can't connect at the outset, you're going to have a very difficult time with everything that comes downstream of that.
Mm. Yeah, I'm curious, what role, Omid, do values play in all of this from your perspective?
They're right there at the top, because at the end of the day, we have the good fortune to be very selective about the types of clients that we represent at the firm, and we exercise that with a high degree of care. We want every attorney here practicing for their clients to feel good about the arguments that they're advancing on their behalf. And without values, that's an impossible task. So the first step is to make sure that the objectives are aligned with the values that we have as practitioners here at the firm, so that we're always advancing arguments that are really in line with our own central beliefs about the practice and why we do what we do.
Mm.
Hey, I'd just be curious. What are some of your values, if you don't mind sharing?
Sure. I have, you know, values shift over time given your priorities and where you are in life. For instance, I'm been married now for 14 years, so right up there, the highest level of my values are going to be my family, my wife, and my children, my close friends, and then the people that I'm responsible for as a leader here at this firm. Those are all super high priorities. And then I also value my faith, and that's co-commitment with everything that we do here in the practice as well, is that we want to make sure that, again, not just from an academic standpoint, but we want to feel spiritually what we're doing is contributing good value towards society at large. And it's hard to do that if you're not aligned with your faith and what your religious values are. So that's very important to me as well.
I think that's a great answer. And it's interesting because so many times we ask about values to leaders and we hear about the values of the company, from the wall, from the website and all of that. I love how you brought your personal values to this. And it sounds to me like those are very intertwined with the values of the organization, which is brilliant.
Absolutely. Yeah. It always comes from the top down. So we can't expect it of our team if we don't have those values ourselves. So you have to practice what you preach ultimately and make sure that everybody who's reporting back to you gets a sense that the things that you're putting out there as values of the practice are things that you're willing to live yourself. And that's very important to us.
Hmm. Well, you're listening to Culture from the Heart. We're going to take a brief break to hear from our sponsors. When we come back, more of this great conversation with our friend Omid. Let's be honest, finding the right people and building the right culture, that's the holy grail for every leader.
That's why we recommend Titus Talent, because they don't just fill seats. They help you build teams that thrive.
With their partnership plans, you get more than just hiring help. You get a committed team by your side that helps you attract top performers and retain them.
They bring strategy, data, and a human touch to talent optimization. No guesswork, just results.
So if you're ready to invest in your people and create a culture where everyone wins, head over to culturefromtheheart.com/talent to learn more.
That's culturefromtheheart.com/talent. Your culture is your competitive advantage. Design it with Titus Talent.
Let's get right back to it. Omid, you've got a great company, then firm that you've put together at Omni. I'm curious, this story of culture at Omni. How did culture come to be an important part of the company, the firm, and your vision as a leader?
Well, culture's at the heart of it all, because the reason why we started the practice to begin with had to do with what we felt was lacking in our space, especially when it came to culture. So much of what young attorneys are conditioned to think of as important have to do with the billable hours and what the work product is and how much time is spent. And Sometimes that means being away from your family for prolonged periods of time and not being able to see them during the waking hours.
Mm.
So it was really important when we first hung our shingle to make sure that we're creating an environment where people can really thrive both inside the practice but at home as well. And back to what we talked about a little bit earlier, a lot of that has to do with bringing in our own personal values in the type of work that we do and making sure that we're putting out something into the world that we can feel good and proud each day. So, for example, something that our firm is notorious for is the walk that we make all our young attorneys do anytime they're sending out a cease and desist letter. So, something that's known about our firm is before a cease and desist letter is allowed to go out, if it's being drafted by a young associate, they're not allowed to just hand it to the front desk and have it sent out via FedEx, because we never want to create a culture where we're effectively a mill just churning out one letter after another, hoping to extort money out of people with cases that don't have a lot of merit. So the way that we kind of circumvent that is we have each one of the attorneys who writes the letter take that letter and walk it to the post office and hand deliver it. And the reason why we do that is we want them to be thinking about the downstream effect that their words are going to have on the recipient. And oftentimes that person is going to have to hire their own attorney at great expense. That's going to cause them to endure significant economic hardship that may affect their families in some instances. If the case is extreme, we may be putting that company out of business. And we want everybody at the firm to be mindful of that their words are more than just musings on a piece of paper, but they actually have real world consequences that they should constantly keep in the back of their minds as they're working at their desk. These are not faceless entities that they're going after. These are real people, and there will be consequences for the work that we're doing here. So never lose sight of that.
Wow, this is. Where'd you learn this? What was the inspiration behind this? Because this is quite unique to say the least. So there has to be a story behind what got you to where you're at with this. What you just shared with us.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, back to what we talked about earlier, being able to see firsthand the impact that we're having on some of the more closely held, smaller entities that we represent. We're not always on the plaintiff side. Sometimes we're on the defendant side. And that means seeing the impact that these lawsuits have on our clients' day-to-day operations, the effect that it has on their employees, and they're sometimes having to let people go, and the effect that's going to have on the family of the person who's no longer able to be employed because the lawsuit is causing so much stress on that entity. So we see it firsthand. And when you know the bad, it makes it easier to introduce the cure. You've seen the harm that's caused by people not being mindful with their practice, and then you introduce a solution. And this is one of our little ways of doing that. We have other ways as well. One of the other things that we're kind of known for is that every attorney who practices here has a picture of the jurist that they looked up to, whether it was a attorney or a judge on the bench that they looked up to when they entered law school, as a constant reminder on their desk. I have mine over here. That's Abraham Lincoln. For me,
You've been out of law school for quite some time, Omid.
yeah, it's been a while. Eons.
You're looking good.
Oh, thank you. So yeah, every attorney has one of those on their desk as a reminder of what we aspired to be when we entered into this practice, just so that we never get caught up in the day-to-day. And at its heart, it's an adversarial profession, and there's that temptation there to constantly just go after the win. But we want to make sure that we're also being mindful of our values that we talked about earlier and not sweeping those under the rug just so that we can get a W.
What a great story. So I'm curious, what are some of the other ways that you live out these values inside your firm?
We try to keep a family community environment here at the firm. We want to be aware of what's going on with one another, not just within the practice, but how are things at home? How are your relationships? How are your kids doing? We celebrate the accomplishments of different different extended family. We call them people who are spouses of the attorneys who work here at the firm. Their children, we're constantly sharing with one another at our weekly meetings to make sure that we're aware of what's going on in our lives outside of the four walls of this office, so that we can communicate and relate to one another on a human level, not just professionals with our knowledge of intellectual property and business law.
Mm.
This goes back to the two words we just talked about earlier, connect and relate. And it seems like you're carrying that out really well inside your firm is your ability to connect and relate, and everyone's ability to connect and relate. Somehow this starts cascading out with the clients that you all work with.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, I never thought of it that way, but it's a really good way to characterize it, because like we said earlier, that's the key. If you don't have that connection at the outset, it becomes increasingly difficult for you to relate both with your clients and then your colleagues here within the practice.
So good. Well, we'll be right back. Don't miss what's next on Culture from the Heart. If you were buying a company, you wouldn't just glance at the website and say, looks good, let's buy it. You'd do your due diligence. You'd review the books, check the leadership, dig into performance history.
Exactly. You never spend millions on a company without knowing what you're getting. Yet, most CEOs hire salespeople with nothing more than a resume and a gut feeling.
That's why we recommend Sales Index Unlimited Candidate Assessments. It's like due diligence for your sales hires. Each sales candidate is evaluated across 21 core sales competencies, because a crucial role like sales requires more than a personality profile. Sales Index compares candidates against a database of 2.5 million salespeople. You'll know exactly who has the drive, the grit, and the skills to perform before you bring them on board.
Because in sales, a bad hire doesn't just cost salary, it costs momentum, margin, and morale.
For just $299 a month, you can protect your growth engine and make every sales hire a smart investment.
Do your due diligence before your next hire.
Go to unlimited.salesindex.ai. That's unlimited.salesindex.ai and hire with confidence. Thanks for listening to that quick break. Let's get back to the heart of today's episode. Omid, I think the story here is spectacular. You work inside an industry that is known in so many ways for the opposite of great culture, the grind of becoming a partner, the endless hours, the soul killing work, all of the things. And to me, for the CEOs listening in, whether they're in the legal environment or any environment, I think what I see here that's so special is you have intentionally redefined what it means to be a firm in your industry around the culture you've created. And that is, I just want to say that is really, really special. So would you be kind enough to maybe coach other leaders who are listening in going, man, this culture from the heart type thing, purpose, meaning, like that's not our industry. Well, you've done it in your industry. What advice would you give to other leaders that are listening in going, maybe I want some of that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we were all kids. We may be fortunate enough to have kids, and look at the way that they perceive the world and the way that what they value and what they find to be important, and try not to lose sight of that. It's increasingly difficult, as we talked about, when you're the head of an organization, and as that organization grows, so do the responsibilities that are co-committing with that. And when you see the bills start piling up, and you see that your payroll keeps going up and up and up and up, it becomes increasingly easy to cross those lines, the boundaries that you had set for yourself at the outset, begin to fade over time if you continue to step over them, and pay them little mind. And so always bear in mind that you want to lead from a place where your values are not compromised. That little child inside of you still feels good at the end of the day that they left this world better than it was when they came into it, and they didn't sacrifice their values in exchange for whether it be fame or money, material possessions, things of that nature, because those are all fleeting. Those will come and go, as those of us who have it know. But the stain that a bad decision, hurting somebody when, they didn't necessarily deserve it, will leave on you permanently is something that's not easy to scrub off. So keep that in mind and lead with your principles.
Mm.
Oh, oh, it's so good. So I'm going to throw you on the spot, Omid, but I think you can handle it. What do you want to be known for? 10,
Mm.
15, 20 years down the road? What's Omid want to be known for?
Oh man, legacy, that's a big one, right? Now that I have 3 kids, above all else, I want to be known as a good dad to them, because that encompasses a lot. When
Mhm.
I earned my DAD with my first son, Leo, um, I s- he he set the bar high. He was such a beautiful uh, soul, and it reminded me of how important it was that I be a good caretaker and create an environment that him and then eventually his siblings could really thrive in. And then that carries all into the day to day of the practice. If you're not doing good things at work, it's hard to come home and put on a face like you're a worthy leader to these, bright beacons for the future. So every day, bear in mind the impact that you're having on the world and generations that will follow you. The expression that we use in one of the organizations, nonprofits that I'm a part of, is called ALDER. They say plant seeds whose shade you may never sit under. So make sure that you're thinking about the next generation, the impact that your time here on this earth is going to have on them, and just be a good steward of the blessed time that we've all been given.
That's so good. What other advice would you give to leaders that are listening and going, "Yeah, I wanna go against the tide of my industry"?
Mhm. Just know that it's important to be resilient, because, yeah,
Mhm.
sometimes the tide gets rough and shore looks like it's a long ways away and you begin to doubt yourself. But at the end of the day, if you stay true to your core values and you don't sell those out and have faith, I think the universe will provide for you. I think good outcomes are likely because there's so much abundance, but sometimes we get into that scarcity mindset of, oh, I need to take this opportunity over here because there may not be another one. But just keep in mind that when one door closes, another one will surely open. Have faith and then push forward, keeping your values front of mind always.
I'm sitting here listening to what you just said, and this word just popped into my head, Omid, and I think there's some play on this. It's self accountability as a leader. You got to hold yourself accountable to everything that you just said, because something tells me when you don't, your people start sensing it.
Absolutely, absolutely. It all comes down to that man in the mirror, right? So it's a tough sell. You can't just fake it. Your team will pick up. They're all bright human beings. We most of the people who are listening to this podcast will have direct reports that check in with them and feed off the energy that they're exuding. So as much as you may think that you're pulling the wool over their eyes, you'd probably be surprised at how well they can see through the facade.
Mm, so good. Well, Amit, if you could say one thing to the leaders as we wrap this up and encourage our leaders and future leaders who are listening in, what would you say?
Yeah, don't hesitate to lead from your heart. At the end of the day, you're probably going to be exposed to piles and piles of works of literature from bright business professionals who've been there, done that, and are hugely successful. And if you really peel back the curtain and look underneath, you'll probably find that many of them are leading from the heart as well. And that's what's given them the drive to continue doing what they do, putting in those hours and being deliberate with the choices that they make. And so if they can do it, that should be a core part of what you do as well. And don't lose sight of that.
Beautiful.
Wonderful.
Omid, thank you so much for sharing your time, your heart, and your passion with us today. This has been truly incredible.
Absolutely my pleasure.
Thank you.
What an incredible story, Larry. And I just think of the beautiful picture of Omid and his firm and how they've gone against, the what you would expect from that industry. I don't, in it's like this in so many industries where you go, well, our industry is just like that. You go, well, it doesn't have to be. And I think what I've seen in this story today is so inspiring for anybody listening in going, that's not how my industry is. You go, well, let's change the culture. And it starts inside, starts with me, starts with each one of us as individuals, with our meaning, our purpose, and that just spreads. Beautiful.
Yeah, I think of the word alignment, and then as we wrap, I just think of the wonderful Robert Frost poem about the road less taken. That's
Mhm.
exactly sums up this conversation with Omid.
That's right. Well, hey, we believe that culture is the heartbeat of every organization. And as Omid has reminded us, it is about purpose and meaning. So thank you for joining us today on Culture from the Heart. Until next time, lead with your heart and watch your culture thrive.
Thank you for joining us on this journey to discover heart-centered leaders shaping extraordinary company cultures. To access a leader guide with notes from this week's episode, simply click the link in the show notes or visit us at www.culturefromtheheart.com. Do you know a CEO who's built a culture from the heart? We'd love to hear their story. Head over to www.culturefromtheheart.com and click the Nominate Your CEO button. Until next time, remember, great cultures start with the heart.